Okay, now we are learning about resistance. As the word suggests resistance, what is resistance? Resistance is resisting something, stopping something, obstructing something. So resistance is nothing but an obstruction to the flow of current. And why is resistance required? Sometimes because of the excessive current, the circuit can get damaged. The wires can burn and it can cause a major, damage at home or anywhere the appliance is connected. So always a resistance is there for every device to control the current. So basic functionality of resistance is to control the current and how much current is flowing through the circuit. Now, when we talk about resistance, how is this resistance, current, voltage, all of this related? It's related to each other through Ohm's law. What is Ohm's law? Ohm's law states that voltage is directly proportional to the current. So what does that mean? As the voltage is increased, as the potential difference applied to the circuit is increased, that's when the current also increases. So as the current is increasing, of course, there should be a requirement of resistance. So when I get this into a formula, I can say V is equal to R I. Now what is this R, or what is this R coming from? This R is the constant of proportionality here. Okay, so what does this constant of proportionality anywhere in physics means? That this resistance value is not going to change. As the voltage increases, current will increase, but the resistance will remain same. So I can get it into a formula which you all must be learning in school, that is V by I, which is equal to R. But this is how the formula is derived. Now as we know Ohm's law, we also need to know what is IV graph. Most of the students get confused when IV graph is asked to be drawn. What they do is they write I on the x-axis. But wherever you see a graph and they give you a graph which starts with I, then V. So remember, I is always going to be placed on the y-axis, V on the x-axis. As we already know that the relationship between voltage and current is directly proportional to each other, so there is going to be a linear graph. Okay. Now, as we know that graph is linear, but there has to be a slope for every line. So if I want to find out the gradient or the slope of this graph, I will just plot 2 points and get the gradient. Okay, you can do this by the formula of slope, that is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, where you will have 2 points. This is x2 y2, this is x1 y1. This you can plot. But what exactly is the slope? Okay, so let's see. The slope has y-axis on the top in the numerator, and in the denominator we have the x-axis. So what is there on y-axis? It is current. So let me just write I here, and on the x-axis we have voltage. So I'm going to write V here. What we learned earlier, we learned that V by I is equal to R. This was our Ohm's law formula. But now if you look here, the slope is I by V. So how do I get I by V? I get I by V by reciprocal of the formula. So this becomes 1 by R. So slope of an IV graph, make sure that you don't write it as resistance. If you write it as resistance, you're absolutely going to get 0 marks. You have to make sure to write it as 1 by resistance. As we know what is Ohm's law, and we also know how to find out the slope of IV graph, now we should know what is the limitation of Ohm's law. Where is the Ohm's law not going to get applied? So it doesn't get applied if the temperature of the conductor is not constant. So limitation of Ohm's law is that it will be applied only when the temperature of the conductor remains constant. So according to this, there should be 2 types of conductors. And the two types of conductors are ohmic conductors and non-ohmic conductors. So ohmic conductors are the conductors that obey Ohm's law, and non-ohmic conductors are the conductors that do not obey Ohm's law.